Hello and welcome to another episode of Product Unfiltered. I'm particularly excited about the episode because we are joined by two very amazing guests today, uh, who are not just great product builders but are also our fellow CMU alumni. So go Tartans because we have four CMU product folks on the podcast today. Our first guest is Harshika Jain, a senior product designer at McKinsey, and Nitul Shah, staff product manager at Walmart. I've personally known Harshika and Nitul for a while now, and it's always a pleasure to connect and learn from their experiences in product management. Thank you, Harshika and Nitul, for taking the time to be with us on Product Unfiltered.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, so before we actually dive into the exciting insights in product management, why don't you both share some introduction? Like, how was your journey in product management? Where you started? What are you currently working on? So, why don't we start with Harshika?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a product designer. I do digital products, but my journey started with building physical products with my degree in industrial design for my bachelor's. And
Mhm.
then I came to CMU for master's program at the Integrated Innovation Institute. And post that, I've been working on building digital physical interactions and digital products. So my journey started with working at a in design. It started almost 8-10 years back, but currently I'm a designer at McKinsey, where I'm building generative AI experiences. And before that, I've built enterprise products at McKinsey and design systems.
Oh, great. That's amazing. Like, we would definitely love to dive more into the generative AI experiences you are building with McKinsey right now. But yeah, Nitul would love to know from your experiences as well.
Sure. So currently, as you said, I'm a staff product manager at Walmart. I've been in Walmart for close to 4 years now. Prior to this was my first company ever since I graduated from CMU. And prior to that, my journey is like towards product management in industry really began after my graduation in computer engineering from India. I worked in a startup for information security for a year. Then I moved to a government organization to work on innovation for another year. And then I moved to education tech for one more year while building my own ed tech startup. After getting my hands dirty in multiple products, tech, in design and engineering, I decided to do masters at CMU at Silicon Valley in software management. And ever since then, I'm on a new platform or a new vertical, which is retail industry. And I was primarily looking at supply chain operations efficiency for Walmart and trying to make sure that the inventory is available for our customers as soon as possible. So
Mhm. Yeah, Nitul, that's really exciting because your journey starting from helping government, then building your own startup, now coming to Walmart, we really want to deep dive more into that. But before we go there, Harshika, you are graduated from National Institute of Design in back in India, right? So would love to know how that experience shaped out your career in terms of coming towards product design, and what was the experience like? Because a lot of people admire to be a student from there, so share some light on how was your experience there.
Mhm. Yeah, so at NID, I studied industrial design, which is building physical, tangible products. And when I was at NID, I did an internship building spaces for people undergoing chemotherapy. And from that
Mhm.
service design experience, I pivoted more to the digital side. And then I worked at Microsoft for a little bit. So that journey has been mostly driven by these experiences where I was really, I really knew about the design aspect, but I felt I was lacking in the engineering and the business side of things. And maybe if I had stayed more in the industry, I would have learned that. But at that time, it felt like a really strong need that I want to learn these things. And MIPS seemed to be that program that brings together all of that. So I
Mhm.
do remember in some meetings, I would just be talking design to stakeholders that are not designers. And I got feedback that, you need to speak the right language for the right stakeholders. So those were some of these small experiences that nudged me towards pursuing this degree.
Mhm. That's great to know. Um, we'll come to you, Nitul. Just a follow-up question for Harshika here. So when you say understanding the language, that becomes a very crucial part for all of us, right? Because being in product space, dealing with so many people, you need to know the language with which you deal with different people. But it's always a challenge as a product person to deal with designers, engineers, because all of them have different languages to understand too and communicate for. So how has your experience been so far being in a product designing space when you are supposed to communicate with the engineering who have a complete whole of different mindset where they're completely focused on building products or developing it? But you need to balance things out, right? Because I'm sure while you whiteboard or while you brainstorm, there are ideas, but while executing, those shapes out in very different formats. So some lights if you can throw there as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. So, with the engineering team and with product management as a designer, the process is more like brainstorming early on with product management and aligning on product requirements because those are really important. And product managers, they are, I mean, at least in my experience, they are more equipped and their role is more defined to find out all the business needs
Yeah.
and distill it down into okay, these are the directions we want to focus on. But then as a designer in the early stages, I work with product management to iron out those exact details we want to build and then start thinking of going to the whiteboard, following the design process, coming up with a bunch of ideas. Then it's again distilling them down to define the product directions through that, partnering with user research to take it to users, get feedback, continuously doing user interviews. But then this is all, I mean, sometimes it's not a very linear process. It's also, in between, you might want to, like, sometimes I would speak to engineering to ask, can we even build this? And now that I'm working with generative AI, I mean, it is a technology where I mean it's a black box for everyone. Even for me, when I'm working as a designer, I need to know can if I'm designing something, can this intent even be captured by the model? So that also, those technical limitations I need to be aware of. So
Mhm.
in the ideation process, in the refining or defining the direction process, there too engineering is really helpful to just ask, is this even feasible? And that
Mhm.
defines the design directions. And a lot of times, I mean, in the design team, I've had a lot of really good ideas, but when I take it to engineering, they bring up so many good points like, oh, how do we go from this state to this state, which I mean, I know the answers to, but I didn't put it down. So defining that, then coming to, oh, what are the error states for this? And engineers can tell from product perspective, they're really good at sharing that because they have to build it. If this goes wrong, then what do you do? If this goes wrong, then what do you do? So in my experience, in my previous job too, when I was building a very complex role-based access control system, I would sit down with the engineering team to build the whole map of all the paths from different
Mhm.
possibilities. If this happens, then this, because then I have to design for all of these scenarios too.
Mhm.
No, I think that's really interesting, Harshika. When we talk about generative AI products, definitely this is something very new in the industry, and would love to get some thoughts from both Harshika and Nitul here. I think one very interesting point is the ethical needs while you create a generative AI platform. There are problems like hallucination, bias, and all these problems coming around with generative AI technologies. So I want to understand it from a lens of a designer and also from a product manager. What are your role like as a product designer and as a product manager to actually come up through solutions to solve the problem of hallucination bias and all those ethical needs in the generative AI applications? Yeah,
Would
I
love
think.
to hear Nitul your thoughts first, and then maybe we can go to Harshika.
Sure. I was just putting the notes. That's a deep question, Utkarsh. It's and this is a problem I think hasn't been completely solved. That
Mhm.
being said, Walmart has experimented with a few generative AI products internally. At least, I'm there could be other products externally used as well. Let me share with you. I personally, in my product, I have not used Gen AI other than the daily practices of using Gen AI for product work. But my product in itself doesn't use Gen AI at this moment.
Mhm.
But we have, as a part of Walmart, when you are in a huge organization, you always are interacting with different product managers. And one of the best things about Walmart is you have several demos, and at least in Sam's Club, a part of Walmart, we have a huge culture of sharing new work. So I've been a part of many product teams where they have shared how they have thought through Gen AI use cases, and this parts that you mentioned about hallucination, prioritization. How do we take care of these use cases? So I've been on the other side of the table when I've asked these
Yeah.
questions,
Mhm.
but not personally did that. But let me. This is a unique part where I can share what how they have thought through and how what is the general product framework when it comes to using Gen AI products.
I think that'll be great. Yeah.
So there are two key parts in general, in very simple words. First is, I think, classification of data sensitivity. So
Okay.
Gen AI products could be used for something which is non-sensitive data, things like who is the president of United States, who is like something which is publicly available, and you're just asking questions which are not sensitive enough to make life critical decisions.
Mhm.
And then there's a gradient of super sensitive, like highly sensitive, as we call it our company, where let's say it's a financial decision, let's say sales of a certain item, and how much do I need to order more to cater to my upcoming business needs. Say the Gen AI product hallucinates and says that you need to order a billion iPhones, and then maybe there is not enough demand, it causes a financial impact. So those are some sensitive sales data or personal data where we might want to make.
Yeah.
In Walmart's case, it's a retail decision, but in other cases, for example, it's a medical device, then it could be more life-threatening situations as well. So depending on the industry, we first classify the data on sensitivity, and secondly, when it comes to decision making, there's risk management.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Mhm.
in case the decision goes wrong, what is the worst thing that could happen? And we try, as product managers, we try to solve for the worst case scenario. So as one of the things even I learned at CMU was pre-mortem. And this is something which we do. We try to look for what will go wrong first. And then we start from there and see if that is acceptable and if that is okay, then we try to mitigate that. And if business is aligned with it, we then prioritize that feature for deployment. So those are the two key
Mhm.
frameworks, classifying the data and then risk management. Once we have these two parts, then we apply Gen AI in those use cases.
But
Mhm.
Nitul, a quick follow-up question here. As a product manager, how much Gen AI do you really need to understand while developing products? Like when you talk to these product managers who are actively building it, are they Gen AI experts? They know about the different algorithms going in the background, what kind of data have they used, or they just understand the product flow and are able to come up with some ideations and brainstorming?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think in my experience so far, the type of product manager's expertise in Gen AI is dependent on the use case that they are using at this time. For
Mhm.
example, I've seen and been a part of demos where product manager's use case was primarily to query or understand which item is the most interesting item at this point of time. So in that case, a PM may not really need to understand how the Gen AI models work. They are
Mhm.
primarily more business focused PM where they're trying to cater a problem statement to the engineers who are machine learning experts, and they then come up with AI models which allows them to generate item descriptions, top recommendations on the go. We're using large language models. On the other hand, when it comes to sensitive data, think about financials or retail ordering processes. That's when the PM needs to go slightly more deeper and understand how these models are generating recommendations for ordering processes. So I would say the expertise of Gen AI is from a product standpoint until at this point of stage in at retail companies is not required to be much in depth. That being said, when you go to more deeper decision making, at that time a PM needs to know this for valid reasons, being that you have to be answerable. Let's say somebody makes a key decision. These AI models need to be explainable to make sure that you are defining your success correctly.
Mhm. And that's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
Harshika, would love to know your thoughts in this Gen AI discussion as well.
Mhm. Yeah, building on what Nitul said just now, so the risk piece and the overall product direction, how that's defined. So, from a design perspective, too, when I started working on generative AI, I did spend some time just understanding what the whole technology bit is because I have, like everyone else interacted with ChatGPT, other generative AI models, but just um, got tried to get a sense of what exactly um, those models do, how are they parsing information, just to understand. Because what I'm working on is a RAG based system, a retrieval augmented generation. So from a design perspective on, the bias bit and hallucinations,
Mhm.
so I mean, RAG models are usually built on a foundational model.
I'm
On
sorry to interrupt, Ashita, but like would love to get some more understanding about what are RAG models. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned about RAG, what exactly it is, if you can help
So
understand.
RAG models are basically, at least from what I understand,
Mhm.
and based on what I'm building, is that you use a foundational model like maybe ChatGPT. I don't know the exact name of the foundational model, but
Okay.
you build on top and customize it to your organization's information. So you can, that information is then private within your organization.
I see. Okay. Is
So
it like building a
basically,
wrapper around the existing models
mhm,
in the market? Okay.
yes. So
Mhm.
you can train it on your own data, but it's using the the foundational models to actually provide the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
Got it.
But
Thank
you are, yeah. So that's a RAG based model. That's what I'm working on. So, in that, basically, the hallucinations and all of the risks that come with AI models, Gen AI models, they are mostly taken care of by the foundational models because they are already being addressed by these companies.
you.
Um, but some things, like if you've seen in ChatGPT 2, there's this feedback system in Copilot, in Gemini, the thumbs up, thumbs down,
Yeah.
Mhm.
or just a thumbs down. So um, those are feedback loops that are built for users to let them to gather their feedback. And if you see in all of those models, there is that small disclaimer too, that this is generated through OpenAI, maybe just fact check it for your own
Yeah.
good. So I think those are things from a user perspective that can be done just to inform the user in some way, and then also get their feedback that, oh, this response that was generated, this this didn't this wasn't good. And
Mhm.
then uh, for us, what we do is that we then try to delve deeper to ask for what were some of the things that went wrong, or they didn't satisfy you from from the response perspective,
Yes.
be it wrong answer, be it bias, was there some personal information that showed up. So those are some things we can do, so that based on that feedback we can go back and backtrack, oh, this is where in this chat this went wrong. So then that becomes a user research piece, but also it informs engineering. These are the
Mhm.
loopholes,
Yeah.
make it more
Mhm.
robust.
No, that's great to know, Harshika, because I mean, all of us are coming from tech backgrounds, and particularly if I have to take my example at HP, we are trying to build our company as a AI first company, building a lot of enterprise AI solutions, and I'm sure all of us to some extent are building that for our enterprises solutions as well. But would also love to know in product design as well as product management, there are things which you build for the users, but there are some tools which you might be using internally for your day-to-day work. So if you can list down a few tools which you use on day-to-day basis, which has some flavor of AI and helping you streamline your workflow. Nitul, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think there's one tool which is, I think all the AI tools out there, right? Primarily more accessible and easily adoptable is like the Chat GPT. I have
Yeah.
experimented a
Mhm.
bit with Gemini, the older Bard as well, and
Mhm.
I'm recently exploring other tools, but not in my work related, but like personal work. There's a few agents that have come up for trip planning, which
Mhm.
I'm exploring. But I think from a products management standpoint, Walmart has created a firewall version of ChatGPT so that the data doesn't go outside of that. So we have a firewall and we don't send sensitive data, but that's a very good way, because if not, people were going out of their networks and may we could have used that. So I think that's a good idea always for a company to make sure there's a firewall to see if sensitive data is not left, that it doesn't leave the company. The And from a product management standpoint, there are two things I use ChatGPT for. First is validating if my requirements are clear. This has helped me a lot in my drafting of requirements, making sure I'm covering all definite use cases. Like Harshika mentioned, like engineers are very good in finding out some edge cases. So I
Yeah.
try to preempt and find out some of the edge cases from a product management standpoint as well. So that's number one, making sure requirements are covering all potential use cases and any downsides. The second one is validating my uh, this might sound silly, but even validating emails and documentation of your alignment documents, if I can call it. Like, for example, if
Mhm.
you're creating a plan or a roadmap, there are some strategic documents you write down on what would be the priority one, two, three, and why, what are some rationale behind the risks and other options. So usually I write it down on like a Word or something, and then I put it on ChatGPT to see if I have covered many use cases, if it's concise, clear. Sometimes we think everything is clear, but the reader may not look alike. So I kind of ask for a feedback quickly, and I
Mhm.
iterate on those based on some of these. So those documentation practices that product managers use a lot in day to days help me be more clear and be more confident before sending that out, that I know it
Mhm.
has been reviewed by at least one person. So those two parts in summary, like first writing requirements and also validating your documentations, those are the two parts which I use chat like AI tools for in my day to day.
I think that's
Mhm.
super cool, Nitul. I'm not sure if we had this discussion earlier, Nitul, but I remember I was meeting with Nitul in one of the CMU meetups in San Francisco, and at that point of time, me and Rahul were both at CMU, like students at CMU, and we were working on this product Maestro AI, Rahul, creating automating product management with the help of ChatGPT and remember that at that point of time, Nitul mentioning me about the privacy concerns with any big organization like Walmart could have. Glad to see that firewall is one way in which companies can come up through innovative solutions. But I think Rahul, that validates our project that we worked on, and maybe we should find some time to take that project ahead. But anyway, Harshika, would love to know from your side, like what kind of tools do you use as designer?
Um, so I would say that I don't really use Gen AI tools as I mean to help me in design, because those are things I need to do on my own.
But I
Mhm.
have a very quick follow-up question for Harshika. Like Harshika, when we think about LLMs, like
Mhm.
initially LLMs were limited to chat GPT, like just text LLMs. Now we
Yeah.
see LLMs like DALI. I'm not sure if we should say them LLMs. These are not language models, but more of design models, DALI, diffusion
Mm,
models, etc., coming into the market. And
mm,
amazing products being built on top of it. Like very recently, me and Rahul were discussing about this product, Galileo, which helps you create whole UI UX of any website with just a single prompt line. So, what is your take on the future of product designing with these kind of multi-model LLMs coming in the market, which are able to do almost everything from scratch, from ideation to actually building the whole product? What's your take on that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I can't say what the exact future would be like, but there is, of course, the problem solving piece, which I do think that if you are trying to solve a problem within your company, you might have more context from all the other similar things you've seen, all the discussions and all the user research. So I feel as a human, you have all that context and then you have to validate things. So I think these tools in the future, they are, and even now, they are really helpful in helping you think of more ideas. But I think that the decision making piece is something that comes with experience, and someone who's
Mhm.
seen very who's tenured in seeing products, taking them to the market. Because even when just to give you this example, suppose I am the chat gpt, or
Mhm.
the visual tool generating all these ideas. I go to leadership meetings to help me make those decisions, that this is the decision we stick with, this is the thing we build. So the decision making piece is, of course, I feel it can be aided, but it cannot be replaced by
Yeah.
Yeah.
humans. So even in design, when I have 10 ideas to pick two, I do have to have that synthesis piece with user research, with product management, and through user validation. Then I would pick that these two directions could work for our users. So I think those are some things that perhaps Gen AI tools cannot take away from what
Take
a
away.
human can
No,
do.
Mhm.
absolutely. And like a very quick follow-up question for Nitul as well here. When I was talking to you about DALI and all these systems, I remember me recently watching a meme on LinkedIn in which when this Devin was launched, that's a what it's an AI assistant for coders, or it's meant to
Yeah.
be, right, Rahul? Yeah. So when I
Yeah.
saw that the platform was launched in a PM community, someone shared a meme that there's a product manager feeling very proud that now I have the capabilities to create mockups without needing Figma or without connecting with a product designer. And I can also create basic level of codes with the help of platforms like Devin. So Nitul, how do you think that product management will be evolving with these tools coming in? Do you think at certain point of time a reliability of a product manager on designers and engineers will reduce a little bit in the future, or do you think that these are just uh, a very fad thing which is going in the industry right now and what it won't sustain in the future?
I so once again, I'll share that in my opinion, these ties to, for example, like PM function is currently to to orchestrate getting things done and execution of an idea or solving a problem statement. So we are currently dependent on designers and engineers. So let's say this is a the solution is software right now. So that is the assumption we are making. And we need designers and engineers to make design decisions and technical decisions. When we
Hmm.
say technical decision, it is not just code, there are some architectural level decisions too. So there are many decision making processes that are human centric today or human dependent today. To Harshika's point, AI will aid these decisions, which will help them make faster. So we would still need engineers at some point of time to make or validate the technical decisions. But the only time, Utkarsh, when that will be possible for a PM to be completely independent is when AI will get sophisticated enough that it surpasses human judgment, right?
Mhm.
So I think from a product standpoint, if I am a techno optimist, I would say there could come a point where an AI would automatically would have that much capability to say that I am better than human judgment. I am a better system to decide where the servers needs to be, when they would turned on, what type of server I need, what type of code I need. And similarly, there would be a design tool in handy that would be much better in deciding what UI is better, which could validate in real life. Like when users are using it, some data points or some icons are more frustrating, better in real time if things get updated. There could be a point where we may not need as much human judgment, but I think it's not the current state of the art. And I'm primarily reflecting thoughts of what experts are saying on Twitter. And again,
Mhm.
that's something which we should take with a pinch of salt. Uh, there are many downsides to these, which all of us in as an industry in tech may be impacted. Even product managers could be replaced by AI at some point, because even in the end the product decisions we make are about prioritization and go to market and all the basically looking at all the risk management part. Even those parts could be automated at some point. So the question is like, what is the worst case scenario? So we end up thinking about an apocalyptic world where AI
Mhm.
gets surpasses human intelligence. So I think these things are theoretically possible at this point of time, but we have not seen the light of the day. Until then, we all can enjoy that we have some work to do.
Yeah.
So now that we have discussed a lot about generative AI and how does the future looks like in both product design and product management, there's a general notion out there. A lot of audience who listen to our podcast are people who are deciding whether product will be a good space for them or not. So we would actually love from you to understand For example, let's start with Harshika. If you can break down what is product designing, what does a product designer does, it'll really help our listeners to make a choice whether this is a good career for them. And then we'll come to Nitul.
Um, yeah, so for our listeners, I'd like to share how I picked being a designer. So for me, the motivation was, oh, I want to solve a problem. And so even though I started in a more solving for tangible products, some of the product concepts I designed were dustbin for the Indian Railways, considering which direction do people walk in with their trash. Um, how can that dustbin be inviting? And I was working on toilets for off the grid areas. And similarly, in a digital realm, um, product design is about how do you make it very easy for users to interact with technology. So taking the Gen AI example, it is Gen AI is a black box. Even, I mean, Gen AI is fairly recent for everyone, but even AI for that matter, it's a black box for people. So how can you make that easy? So I take the example of this transit app uh, that has predictions on when is my bus coming. So as a designer, you can at least make that process more interactive, right? Like, oh, this is the path of the bus, this is where the bus is right now. And maybe when you sit on the bus, it'll ask you so that it can help other people. So that there are all these touch points that are built. And I feel as a designer, it's more than just the visual part, which is also a skill. I mean, that is the whole skill based piece, being able to build a tangible or a digital outcome, which looks nice, which is attractive. That is one skill based piece, but the other big piece is the problem solving bit, about how do you actually make it very easy for people to understand that. And it's I sometimes it's hard for me to say that these are the 5 skills I can write down for you to be a good designer, because it is, you have to be combining information from so many places to be able to solve a problem. So for me, when I'm solving a problem, I look at other products, then of course driven by the problem I'm solving. But sometimes that inspiration can come from, you know, maybe an app I'm using or some idea that I thought of. Like maybe I'm thinking about, oh, um, how can I refine a slide deck, right? So maybe some ideas for that are, oh, do I want to chat with this, or do I want to prompt it? So things like that. So and that idea can come to me through WhatsApp. Maybe, how do I chat with someone, making it very conversational. Um, so yeah, I think as a designer, yes, there is the whole visual part which you need to be good at, but that can be developed. But yes, you when you're interviewing, you also have to prove to the interviewers that I can do this product for you. But it's
Mhm,
also very important to have that empathy with the end users to be building that product in the first place.
mhm.
Harshika, I
Yeah.
have a quick follow-up. Do you
Mhm.
think that you can be a great product designer without having a creative knack? Like, say, for example, I'm currently a PM. Design always intrigues me personally, and there have been instances where I feel that is that a path I want to traverse in the future? But something that really stops me is, oh, Utkarsh, are you really that creative? Because when you think about designers, when you talk to product designers, you always feel that they are creators. They are very creative
Mhm.
people on the first place, and then they know all the kind of necessary techniques. But is it the other way around as well? If I know the basic techniques of designing, if I am able to empathize with users, can creativity be developed while you are working in this role?
So I think everyone is creative, firstly, because the best ideas, they come from brainstorming with a bunch of say your team or other people. So everyone is creative. I think as a designer, you are probably more inclined to, or you're like, this is how I want to visualize my idea. So
Mhm.
sometimes even in brainstorming sessions, I find it really valuable to go with some directions that I've put down on paper, and that helps to fuel more ideas. So I think everyone is creative, but it's that piece of putting it down on paper to visualize and communicate your idea. That is the part where I feel
Yeah.
uh, design having some of those skills help, and again those can be developed. So I feel, I mean, choosing a path as a designer is like choosing, I could have been an engineer if I wanted to, or if I could have been a doctor. It's like, these are the things that interest me consistently, so I see myself having a career path in it. And of course sometimes there are professions that it's hard to pivot from, like I can't decide to be a doctor tomorrow for all practical purposes,
Mm.
right? But maybe if I'm a designer and I'm inclined towards engineering, I could maybe try becoming a front end engineer. But
Mhm.
in the end, it's about, what do you see yourself doing every day or consistently?
Perfect.
Well, thanks, Harshika, for sharing that. Key insights from this I would take is, again, some prereqs which are there for sure, that'll be always there, but need to have good communication skills, and then you should be able to visualize things, because
Yes.
people can be creative, but the idea is if you can communicate and visualize those things and help people understand, that's where the whole magic lies, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, So now, Nitul, we would also love to understand from you, if you have to break down product management in easy terms, how would you do that? And a bit of a task for you here would be if you have to link it with your background, because we are really excited to see that you have worked with the government, then your startup, and then you decided entering CMU. How has your past experiences helped you shape out to the definition which you'll share with us now?
Those are two fully loaded questions, Rahul. So, firstly, breaking down product management, there's an entire 16-month program by CMU and a 12-month program. But I think if I had to break it down in just a minute, it I would say there are, instead of breaking it down, I rather put it as like, what are types of product management? And I think that is a much better way of looking at what tasks you would do. And this is something which, going back to Harshika's point, what do you see yourself doing every day? So if I were to break down product management, I think there are times, of course, we have the double diamond approach where we have define, discover, implement, or I think it's called develop and deliver.
Mhm.
But if you have to really look from product lens, there is discovery, that is vision. When you have nothing on the ground and you're building something or imagining something, that's the vision process. The second is the craftsman, which is you try to find out that product insight and what would fit the product market fit. And third one is, I think, the operator problem, which is like you execute really really well. So
Mm.
first is like imagining something which no one can see. The second one is building something that no one could, or identifying that fit. And third one is executing that fit. So as a product manager, and these are the three things, as I meant, visionary, craftsman, operator is something that defined by a product leader in the Bay Area called as Shreyas Doshi. And I really connect with these three words. As a PM, you are in either of these three stages in any given point of time. And so in this week of the year, I'm currently in Walmart, an operator. I'm executing a product, which is something that last month when I was doing my quarterly planning process, that was the time I was wearing the visionary hat of, hey, what does the next 3 years look like? Now I'm in the, we did the product insight really quick. We had the designer, and that's where you collaborate with other team members and find out the product fit. You don't do it single-handedly. So you collaborate with others and find out the product fit, and then you operate with the help of your team. So
Mhm.
these are the three ways I would break it down. Visionary, craftsman, and operator. You could be in either of the three stages. One of these three things could be a superpower. So
Yeah.
you could be a great visionary, maybe a medium operator and a medium craftsman, or vice versa. So that's how I would break it down. Um, Now coming back to the background, It's a very long story. Whenever people ask me about, I try to summarize it, so it might go longer,
Mhm.
but I'll try to make it very short. So, in simple words, that there are two things that drove me to product management. First is I realized that I have a deep empathy and understanding of users. I cannot live without checking real time or getting feedback on how is my work impacting them. Uh, the second one is about continuous exploring for solutions and trying to build the best product out for them. So first is like understanding what the problem is, and second is finding solution, constantly finding solutions for them. So those are the two things I realized that are my natural characteristics, and that is the definition of my entire journey. So in simple words, I'll just walk you through down. When I graduated, I was working for a security startup. I was a software developer back then, so I was solving a problem for sure. So that was solving the second part, but I was not able to connect with the consumers and realize what their pain points are. So I thought of becoming a designer, assuming that they are the ones who are connected with the solution model and solution process. And so I was actually interning as a UX designer for a startup for a short amount of time to quickly
Mhm.
realize that designer really has a good amount of role in coming up with solutions. But then I came across the field of product management where you also have to make decisions on solutions. So the designers may be able to recommend something, right? But back then I realized, okay, the PM is the one who aligns not just with the design, but he also looks into, or she looks into, legal, business, finance. So there's a lot more characters involved in decision making. So I wanted to take that role. So then I transitioned to becoming a PM, and I came across a role in the government, which which allowed me to get my hands dirty. So there were n number of problems in the state that I come from, called Maharashtra, and the government opportunity was to be there for 1 year and solve any problem you can pick.
Wow.
So I that was basically product management. You find out your own problem and you have any resources to solve. So I picked out several problems with regards to farmers not getting their uh, well certifications, many people not having Wi-Fi access, education in rural languages. I've worked on 11 projects in 12 months, which is a lot of them in parallel. So I learned multitasking, working with different departments, and that was my validation that I can get the job done. All of these projects, I think most of them failed. Some of 50% of them got succeeded, and many of them are still continued as one of the top flagship programs of the government. So there are a few things I learned. Number one, I like to solve problems. Number two, I'm okay with failure. And number three, I'm okay with not getting the credits after things are done. These are all something you are ambiguous out of it. You are out of the government after some point. So these credits are taken
Mhm.
by the leaders. So learning these three, and I enjoyed that. So that's the part going back to Harshika's note earlier, which I love that. What is it something that you love doing every single day? So if I like doing these jobs, then I like being a product manager. So that's when I came to
Mhm.
CMU to really polish the rest of the skills and see, being back in the day, US was the top in tech. And that allowed me to enter the US and get polished here and start from there.
Mhm.
That's
That's the
beautiful.
perfect background, I would say, Nitul.
Absolutely.
All check boxes in place: visionary, craftsmanship, and operator. All three, in some senses, are different experiences.
You know what? I
Um,
have to take a master class from Nitul on how to interview, because when I see how is Nitul able to such beautifully explain his background, I'm sure as a hiring manager, it's a strong yes, right? Even after hearing this background, so it's beautiful. I'll definitely connect with Nitul after this call.
But now that we are moving ahead with the podcast, we have a small segment because it's a very rare combination when we have a product designer and a product manager together in the call. So now we'll take name of few products, and then we would want both of you to rate on a scale of 1 to 5. So Harshika, you'll have to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of design, how good that product is. And then Nitul, on a scale of 1 to 5, wearing the hat of a product manager, how good do you think that product is?
And
Okay.
like in a very quick line or two, you can also share why do you think about that particular product and why did you rate it that way?
Sure. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll start with our first product. I think all of us have used it. It's Slack. So Harshika, on a scale of 1 to 5, in terms of design, where will you rate Slack?
I'll say older design 5, new design 3 because I can't find anything.
Okay. Nitul?
Okay.
I would say it's a 4.5. This
Mhm.
is in relation with any other competitive products. I think any if you take Zoom chat, um, Teams or Slack, I think Slack's the most user friendly. Where I feel positive when I'm communicating with others. It doesn't feel like I'm in a dark room sitting uh,
Uh,
and talking with.
Mhm.
For every other product, I want to go out of those products, but with Slack I feel like I can be there and continue to communicate for a long amount of time. So my
Mhm.
engagement with the product is really high. At the same time, it makes me feel happy about communicating. So those are the two reasons why I like.
so, like Nitul, because you are a product manager, I have been interviewing a lot in product management. So, like all frameworks are right now in my head. So, whenever they ask you what is your favorite product, why it is your favorite product, so you come up with three very important points that okay, the usability is very good, it's fun to use, etc. So, what are your 3 points? Like just from a PM lens point, I want to understand from you.
Well, those interview questions are to require much more detail. Then you have to start with the vision of the product, right? You
Yeah,
can't just be as a user. Right now, these questions are from a user standpoint,
yeah,
in
Yeah.
some manner, of course, product standpoint. But those questions are like you have to start with the company's vision and mission,
yeah.
and apart from there, the whole intent of why it started. Slack again, it's a stumbled upon product. It started with as a gaming product, I think, with Snow, and then it became a communication tool. So this is a Slack is a very unique product on how it became an industry wide accepted product. That being said, the one part I love about Slack is again, sorry, I want to make sure I answer your question. In product management interviews, when for about favorite question, you start with the vision mission of the company, and
Mhm.
then you look for their primary uh, value metrics, like what are they trying to achieve, and you kind of evaluate for those aspects. So
Mm.
as from a communication standpoint, you have to make sure that the people are feeling happy about communication, they are
Yeah.
engaged, and the last one is like they have business value. So you can third part which I didn't mention right here is the pricing model. That those are is it affordable? It's out of budget for users. So I try to. There are three things. I think there is a framework for that. There is called as bus framework. I don't know, business, user, and the I think third one is solution if I'm not wrong. So
Mhm.
I try to go back on that framework. It's a very simple one to keep in mind, and it reminds us to stay aligned to the business objective, user engagement, user feedback, and third one is I think what the solution fit is for
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And let's move to the second product. I think this product is a hardware product, and it's a high possibility that most of us or all four of us may be using this product right now. That's MacBook Air or like MacBook Pro, whatever MacBook version you may have used. So let's start with Nitul this time. Nitul, how would you rate it from 1 to 5?
Well, MacBook Pro, I would say it's a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Once again, I would say it's user friendly as compared to other products. Second one, I think it it provides a lot of delight when I'm using it. Again, it's same as user friendly, but there's slightly different in terms of happiness out of it. And the third one, I think, even though it's a bit pricey for the US market, it comes under a range which people can buy, and it's also many times lightweight. So I think those are the factors I like it. In comparison with its competitors, MacBook Pro is it's good.
Mhm.
Mm.
Harshika.
Harshika?
I would give it a 4.5, and the point 0.5 I would take away because it is at a more premium price than others. But
Mhm.
I think form, okay, not the new MacBook Pros, they are really heavy. But MacBooks, I feel they made compared to other laptops, battery life, they're lightweight. They're when looking at them, you feel a sense of sleekness, or and
Mhm.
you know their finish is very like they have a metal finish. It's like using something elegant and something that can be a statement. um and even usability wise, I think performance is probably like other laptops too, but I think what their revolutionary bit is their trackpad, which
Yeah.
I mean, you can do so much through just one trackpad. I was recently using a Windows machine and it drove me crazy because I couldn't click anything. And I mean, so I think those things, the usability bit, the how does the product make you feel, those are, I think uh, what cuts it for me.
Mhm. That's great to know. we'll have two more products.
Mhm.
So the next product, I'm 100% sure all of us uses it on a very regular basis, and that'll be Instagram. This time we start with Harshika on a scale of 1 to 5.
I would say 4 for Instagram because it, I mean, the one, I take the one away because it in the behaviors that it induces are very addictive. People are just scrolling all the time. But from the perspective of, being connected, being able to share your life, I think the positive aspects of that are really nice because you can
Mhm.
express yourself in different creative ways,
Mhm.
and Instagram enables that. Yeah, the downsides being again scrolling. Sometimes, you see 10 people getting married. Maybe you're not feeling, it doesn't make you feel the best sometimes. Or maybe you're seeing, sometimes people share things and you feel a sense of FOMO, like
Mhm.
someone
Mhm.
doing very fancy trips, and here you are sitting in office late at night. So I think those perspectives, again, that's just a behavior bit, but I think from a perspective of being able to share your life, be creative and express yourself, I think I would give it a 4.
Mhm. Perfect. Nitul?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think I would give it a 2, and I'm being a bit
Oh.
harsh here. Uh, for the reasons that Harshika mentioned. If you had asked me a couple years ago, I would say it's a 4.5, where the intent was what was happening outside, just like help have people share happy memories. But the now it's the time when most of the people are being negatively affected due to addiction, and that's the part where I believe it is causing mental illness. It is similar to any other addictive substance outside where it can be physical and people consume it. But content consumption is something which is not tangible. And that's why it's maybe it's not under anyone's radar, or there are no laws against it.
Yeah.
But it's the part where I think it's getting hard for people outside having a lot of mental illnesses. And if the product itself is not taking responsibility of
Mhm.
taking care of the solutioning and the negative impact, then I think my rating as a PM drops for that, no matter how
Mhm.
many benefits it has.
I think that
Mhm.
that those are some great points that Larshika. It ultimately boils down to empathizing with users. If your product is actually building engagement, but the ultimate goal is not getting fulfilled, it's creating a negative effect. So that is definitely a lower, going south with the product. But
Mhm.
thank you so much for sharing that. We have a last product for you because our core focus was generative AI this time. So let's go with perplexity.ai. Just let us know if you both have used that product earlier, or maybe we can use ChatGPT or Claude, uh, a product that you both have used.
I've used Perplexity. Nitul,
I've
you?
not, I've not.
So maybe Harshika can rate perplexity.ai and Nitul can rate ChatGPT.
Okay. For Perplexity, I would give it, from a usability and,
Mhm.
um, again, uh, usability perspective, I would give it a 4 again
Mhm.
because there are some, or actually, I would give it a 5 even.
Oh.
Uh, because yeah, so what I really like about Perplexity is that other than chats that are maintained as threads, so they, of course, I think Perplexity can't replace a Google search, but they have trending news topics that you can query. So it is actually not like other GPT models that are trained up to September 21 or 22. It gives you very, very relevant information. um, then they have this pro, or earlier it was called the copilot
Yeah.
feature, where when you turn that on, it asks you, it helps you refine your prompt. So I think
Mhm.
that's a really valuable feature in terms of understanding the intent of the user, shaping it, and then getting you the right response. And the third part being, I mean, I the interface is very intuitive. I mean, it is like any other chat interface, but it's really nice. I really like how they have the related section of what you could ask next. Then images come up on the right hand side. So
Mhm.
I find it to be very, very well designed. I haven't used Perplexity with um, agents or assistants, as you would call it. Like if I ask Perplexity to help me plan a trip versus Gemini to help me plan a trip, Gemini is Google enabled. It'll maybe even give me routes, give me flights. Perplexity can't do that. But if they go the agent's route, I'm sure they can. But just in terms of querying and searching, I think they've done a really good job of what they're doing in terms of
Mhm.
usability again.
Nice. That's a detailed analysis, I would say, for Perplexity. Nitul?
Yeah, firstly, I will start using Perplexity now that Harshika has given a five. Secondly, I would say ChatGPT. So my primary competitors are Google's, and again, those are the two competitors I've used at most. So ChatGPT and Gemini. I would say it's a four. The
Mhm.
two parts that I really like about it is the explainability. It whenever you ask it to make a decision, and I have personally used ChatGPT to buy a car, and one of my major decisions was to ask different factors, feedback, summarizing everything online, which I would spend hours doing. I spent 2 hours on ChatGPT and decided to buy a car. So in in the past, I know myself, like whenever buying tech products, I spend 50 hours at least, even if it was, let's say, mobile phone, back in the days,
Mhm.
not right away. But then I am very like tech geek. I know want to know things at the detail level, and ChatGPT saved a ton of my time. So I was
Right.
able to make quick decisions. So I like that it's time saving, and it explains how it's recommending those, and you can always ask follow up questions. So those are the parts I like it. So far, it's been a valuable product. I've not seen many downsides for that. The only part I would say as a downside is, again, we are all privileged to speak in English, but I would love to have a tool which is spoken or used in other languages outside of English. So that's the part I think I like to see as that's a one missing part, that to open it for others. But that's why it's a four.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's
perfect, proper product manager insights we've got for ChatGPT now.
absolutely.
But this was a fun round. I really enjoyed all the insights we've gained, like good different perspectives and a fun engagement activity. I would say it's not just fun, lots of learning attached to that. But now that we are moving towards the end of our podcast, before we end the podcast, we would love both of you to share a few advice with people who are early in their career. They are still figuring out whether product would be the right space for them or not, or maybe they have just entered the product space and still navigating the world of products. So, any last minute advice for them? We'll start with Harshika and then we'll go to Nital.
Um, yeah, so for if you're in the product space or you're trying to find a job, firstly, I mean, from a practical perspective, say you are on a visa or there's a timeline on your that a timeline that you have to meet, then maybe just play to your strengths, get a job, and then in parallel figure out how you still want to enter product. Because I feel, suppose you are pivoting from a different background into product, maybe it is easier for you to get the role that you've been trained in, and then you could internally try to make that move into product by networking with those teams, or continue looking for a job. And being in product, I feel, I mean, it depends again on what we were talking about. What do you see yourself doing on a day to day? Maybe, I mean, there are, I mean, you could be that person who likes to solve feasibility problems, how to build something uh, from an engineering perspective. And that is great, you should do that. But if you feel like you want that user perspective, you want to be shaping what a product is going to be like, then maybe product management or product design is a really good direction for you. If you still want to be in the technical space, or be a product designer or a product manager for a specific industry, then
Mhm.
I mean, it is hard to network your way. Like, oh, for example, I really want to design for automotive, or I really want to design for space or healthcare, or pick any particular industry, then I have to network my way in. But if you don't have that exact passion that you want to be in a very specific industry, then you could cast your net wide.
Mhm.
And again, it just boils down to what do you see yourself doing. And I also feel that there's sometimes there is value in pivoting. Of course, you can't maybe think about becoming going into medicine after you've already spent 10 years building a career, because you have to get retrained. But it is always okay to pivot. You can go from, say, being a product manager to a designer, or vice versa, or to a related role. So that's what I'll say, just thinking about what you want to be doing, because for some people this always also happens at a point in your career when you advance. uh, do I want to be an individual contributor, or do I want to be a people manager? And then again, it's that inflection point that, okay, do I really want to be empathizing with young talent? Do I want to mentor them, or do I want to just continue building good product?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's different kind of decisions to be made at different stages of life. But I'll say it's, in the end, thinking about, given my current situation, what is something that I see myself doing every day. And you will know if you are unhappy doing what you're doing, or you're like, this is just a job that brings me money. I mean, you will know it's
Mm-hmm.
not giving you energy. So then from there you can guide yourself to the path
Yeah.
of going into a space.
Harshika, I had a question for you. Like I missed asking this earlier on. You have worked in companies like Microsoft and Autodesk, which are primarily product-based companies, and now you're working with McKinsey, which is a consulting firm. So
Yes.
how is it different to work in product in a product-based company versus a consulting company? Can you share some bit about your experiences?
Um, yeah, so the difference is that in a product company, you are building something end to end, right from understanding the user need to taking it to the market. In consulting, I am till now I've been building design systems, which are different kind of product, but a product in itself, and then even products end to end that are for internal McKinsey use. But also, I mean, in consulting, the uh, kind of design work that people do are for different stages of the design process. So you might be helping out in the ideation process or in the go to market bit. So um, you might not get to execute the whole journey sometimes, but you will still need to know. Like in McKinsey, to be hired, they do expect you to be a full stack designer, having skills in all the areas of the design process, because you could be asked to help a client in any of any
Yeah.
piece of the journey. But just talking to my role at product companies and tech companies, I've been building products end to end most times. And sometimes when it's client work, it is just the initial brainstorming part to help them get started,
Mhm.
or proving out some use cases that, okay, this is how you can build this solution. But the implementation is, for example, maybe taken up by them in house.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thanks so
Got it.
much for sharing that, Harshika. Now, switching gears to Nitul. Nitul, any advice you would want to share?
So for new grads, I would say, to Harshika's point, if you are in the US, that the first thing is to ensure that you have a job. That's a priority, given you are on a limited visa timeline situation. If you don't have such situations of timelines, then make sure that you try to find the right job at the get go. Uh, Even if you are in India or some other country and you are trying to get into PM, then there are many opportunities around India as well to work in small companies, big companies in product. As the country is growing, there are a lot of new demands. So you can always get your hands dirty. Always have a side project at hand where you are getting things dirty. Your current role, even if you are a engineer or a designer, and one you want to explore PM, one of the good ways and the most recommended way is to have a side project where you are managing it end to end. That
Mhm.
builds your story of how you found a problem, identified a solution, and you are getting feedback from customers. So you do not need to think about that if your current role is an engineer, you need to do an MBA to get into product. Your projects on products on the side helps you get there. The
Mhm.
second part I would say is like going back to the key point of today's talk, I say is know what tasks you want to do, or to like exactly to what Harshika said, I think is like what do you see yourself doing every day? If you like connecting with customers, getting to know their pain points, aligning with a lot of people to get solutions, and still be okay to fail if you make the wrong decision, then product management is your way to go. So if you have these two things in mind, or I would just say one more thing is be okay with ambiguity. It's very similar to the above, but be okay with ambiguity. If you have these three parts like empathy, alignment, focused, and empathy, then sorry, ambiguity, then you can decide to be a PM. That's something your cup of tea. Um, I would just add if you are an existing PM and you want to grow or you want to explore or going back to other products or other companies, then I would just iterate what Harshika said earlier, like continue to cast your net wide, continue to network. If retail or supply chain is of interest, then Walmart is your company to go. If you have search other companies, then you have other companies outside too. So look for domain as well. It's not just about what tasks you do, but sometimes the domain industry you are in, which gives you a lot of satisfaction. So make sure you optimize for your job satisfaction as well.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Nitul and Harshika, for that. I totally resonate with all the advices you have provided, like being open to change and how to deal in ambiguous situations. These are some of the crucial steps being in product space you need to deal with on regular basis. I really enjoyed the conversation. It had so many great insight, a fun, good conversation. This officially brings us to the end of podcast. Hope all our listeners have enjoyed the episode and our discussion will help them learn something new. Stay tuned for more such exciting episodes. Thank you so much for tuning into Product Unfiltered.